Good morning, everybody. I am just waiting to go live, and I got some doozy information for you today on our everything we learned from last week, and I got a great new growth hacking tip that we're going to go through. So I'm just going to give it a few minutes for some folks to join. And just bear with us while we're letting people in. Alrighty, and again, we're just going to give a few minutes to get this live for everybody. And we should be good to go.
Yeah, you're live. 3 people are watching on LinkedIn.
Okay, and if anybody is, there we go. Now we're up. Okay, lovely. So we've moved everything over to Restream this morning. And as those of you who know, who join us on this platform every single week, it's about one thing and one thing only. It's about you getting a view from a venture capitalist in the market today about what we can do to help you grow. Simple as that, right? And so I normally cover it on 2 or 3 different areas. I cover number one, I run through some stuff really good that happened last week from my side of it, right? From a VC side. And so you can always get it from that side. It's easy to get it from a marketing person's side, but actually having a VC who's investing in 5-6 companies a month, as we do, and being able to see, why do we invest? What are our colleagues doing? Who else is investing here is obviously really important. I'm also going to share with you things that maybe I saw this week, which were not so nice and do not benefit you as the early stage founders. And then I'm going to pick a growth hacking loop. I'm going to pick something which is going to help you. At the end of the day, Expert Dojo are growth hackers. I always say we're mediocre venture capitalists, but we're damn good growth hackers. And the answer to every question is growth hacking today. So if you can get focused on that, you are going to be as good as gold. So we're just going to give it 1 sec, and then we're going to be good to go. Okay, wonderful. And we should be, for everybody, just every week, this should be streaming not just on the Expert Dojo Growth community, but it should also be should be streaming also on the LinkedIn community and YouTube Live and in Facebook as well. Okay, good to go. Good thing that happened in this past week in our wonderful venture capital firm. And look, I have a lot to choose from. We have 270 plus companies, all doing wonderful things throughout the year. And so for me, we got a ton of stuff to choose from. But one of my favorites was a company that are just about to raise a Series A. They're just about to get their term sheet through this week. And what I really liked about this is, number one, it's really hard to raise Series A. Anybody who's on the Series A path knows this. It's absolutely brutal. But they managed to do it. How did they manage to do it? Bizarrely, they found they found a venture capitalist. And we've already put like 50K into this company, then another $1 million into this company. But we went after VCs and VCs and VCs and VCs and VCs because we knew how hard it would be to get the A round. And I promise you, we found the most obscure VC on the planet, like so far away from the United States. And my learn for this is, with this company, we did so many things. Like, we arranged dinners to meet with venture capitalists. We had special update calls with venture capitalists. We spoke to the venture capitalists who had already invested, like colleagues of mine and people who had already put money into these companies. Literally, there was an army working for the founder. And my lesson really is that most founders, what they'll do when they're going after VCs is they'll go after the VCs that are in their niche, go after them, maybe the ones that are on Crunchbase, definitely go after the ones in their country. It would never occur to them to go after a VC which is tens of thousands of miles away, which might have nothing to do with it. But you have to, in this market, there are so many funds, everybody's changing their criteria and their thesis every single day. So you have to be very specific. And this VC wants to do it because the company in question is directly in the demographic of companies that this VC has. It's a corporate venture capital fund. Now, it would have been difficult for us to know that, but it managed to work out. So I just want lesson number one, all of you. It's Monday morning. We just kicked off on the week. And I want you to look and say, am I going after all of the VCs possible, or am I going out to just a small loop of people? When I'm normally looking at the math, I think to myself, going after VCs or after angels and raising funding is exactly the same as going after your customers. It's a numbers game. There's a conversion ratio from your outbound activities to your meetings or your prospects, we'll say first, and then to your meetings, and then to your sales. It's just a numbers game. It's just a game of math. And if you're not hitting the right amount of numbers to know that your conversion is right, then you got a bit of a problem. And then the second point of that is it's a conversion game. The better you convert, the more likely you are to be able to get this thing done and out of the way so you can get back to the important job of going out to customers. And that brings me to the bad piece that I saw this past week. And that is the amount of founders who just send out investor updates. And there are kind of three levels of this. You might think, well, surely an investor update is a good thing, Brian, because we're keeping you updated on what's happening. Yes and no, right? Yes, because I like updates. They're nice to see. No, because we're not going to read 2 pages of a document that tells us everything that's happening inside your company. And not because like nobody's interested. It's because people don't have time. Like if it wasn't 100% yes before, if investors are thinking about it, think about it like this. You want to keep it very simple so that you are tempting and teasing people, investors, to actually get more interested in you. And if you send a 2-page document, then you are not keeping it very simple. So the worst is when people send nothing. And that is 90% of the folks. 90% of the folks, they do their first outreach, they don't get a yes, and they immediately stop engaging with that particular VC. That's the same as sales, right? And we know that the majority of sales are only hit after you've had 3 interactions with that particular person that you're selling to. Why would it be any different to VCs? Actually, in this market, it's even more. So if you're on that level, you're in a terrible place. You need to build a loop for your communication with your venture capitalists. Only a little bit up from that, but it is a little bit up from that, is when you do big, long updates to investors about what's happening. I know you want to tell everybody about every single thing that's happened, but if you look at the hierarchy of information that you're giving the investor, and then you say to yourself, okay, what is an investor looking for, right? They're looking to try and make sure that they get a return. How do they quantify if they're going to get a return? Well, most pre-seed or seed investors are only looking to see if they can get a return within the first 2 years or so to get you to or past a Series A. That's it. If they get you to or past a Series A, then their job is pretty much done, because now another investor has come in, and that other investor is going to put a ton more money, even in the case that I just mentioned to you. If I have another investor coming in now, going to put in $5 to $10 million, I know that that investor is going to work so hard to take the company to a Series B, right? So you just want to show the investor, as you're continually engaging with them, that you are building the traction to convince them that a Series A is likely. And if there's anybody listening to this, if you're at Series A already, okay, you get the idea. You want to do the same thing for Series B. Now, this is where you question yourself. Do I need 2 whole pages to be able to convince an investor of that? Not really, right? The only things that are going to convince me of that are the traction, the numbers, customer engagement, maybe it's conversion ratios that you have, like something that tells me that the math equation is working well. It's just math. Like with investors, I swear to you, it's just math. The story, all those things, wonderful. That was 2 years ago. Today, it's just math. You can reinforce with the story, but we need to know that you're going to be able to make it to a Series A round. So I'll just give you a quick example, and then I want to move into the growth hacks for today. Let us say you were doing $20,000 a month. Now, we know as an investor that you are probably not going to get a Series A with less than $200,000 to $300,000 a month. Now, at $200,000 to $300,000 a month, that's a 10x increase on where you are. Now, let us say that when you first came to me and you said, Brian, I would like Expert Dojo to invest in this company. We are doing $20,000 a month right now, and we are growing at 8% per month. I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, if you're growing at 8% per month right now, and you're at 20 grand a month, well, even if we bring that up during the year and we take that 8% and we bring it across the entire year, it's still only going to be 8% to $240,000. And that's only going to be like just under $24,000 or between $20,000 and $24,000, which means that you're going to go up an extra 2 to 3 grand a month. Not enough. So let us say the following month, suddenly you jump to 15%, 17%. The only thing you want to tell me as an investor is, Brian, I'm doing exactly what I said I was going to do. You know that $200,000 to $300,000 that you're worried about? You know the fact that as an investor, you're worried about your limited partner being able to show that your assets under management are increasing, that your IRR, your internal rate of return, is increasing. I got you, Brian. I got you because we just increased from 8% to 15%. But I got even better news, because we are probably going to touch that up to 30, 35% per month within the next 3 to 4 months. Wait by. That's all you got to send. One paragraph. That's it. Remember, what you're trying to do is build a relationship. So if you do that, I promise you, first of all, it saves you so much time. Remember, you're not trying to get married here. What you're trying to do is just get a first date. That's it. You want to make sure that the person that you're engaging with, that you're asking to give money in a direction that is going to potentially give them a better return than other areas and other people that are asking them for money. You want to make sure that like those people can see that their belief in you should continue to grow, because you are a badass founder. Okay, so that's the beginning. Founders, funders, all looking for the same thing. Everybody's looking for success. Now, I want to jump in and I want to talk about one of my fave things today. First of all, before we do that, I'm going to jump into growth loops, which is my favorite thing. And I'm going to talk about growth loops. And I'm going to talk about, from an investor's perspective, how we look at billion-dollar companies and kind of where it jumps between art and science. And it takes you into our, and that's what I really want to do as much as I can on these calls, is I want to take you like into our internal diligence as a venture capital, so you understand that as much as possible, because I promise you, our diligence and every other venture capitalist diligence everywhere is exactly the same. There is no gods of venture capital out there. There are no brilliant venture capitalists out there. There are just venture capitalists that have more money than other venture capitalists, but we all think the same. We all do diligence the same. So I always want, at the beginning of the call, take you into a little bit of diligence, whether it's the updates, whether it's how you do your deck, whether it's something else, and then go into a growth hacking loop. But before I do we have any questions just on the first piece that I went through there? Ash, we got anything coming through?
We have 23 people watching on LinkedIn, but I'm keep asking if they have any
Good.
questions concerned, they can ask.
Okay, cookie.
Yeah.
No questions? I like it. But if you do, please ask, because I want this to be something that you literally go away. The reason I do this every Monday morning is because I want to make sure you go away and take action on something that you're doing. I really want, and I find it hard to believe that I'm giving you enough information that you can just walk away and immediately take action on this. So if you have questions, Ash is watching for the questions here. I'll happily answer them. Look, I'm an open book. You all know that for everything that we're going through.
We have Durant asking, do you really believe we all think the same?
Durant, okay. Do you really believe we all think the same? Do you really believe we all think the same? Well, the VCs all think the same, 100%. I think, here's my view on VCs. I think most of us have no clue what we're doing pre-Series A. No idea. Zero. You know, we talk about really nice things about art and science and everything else. Many VCs that were never founded. I actually don't think it matters. Look, I was a founder before, so Durant is coming in strong. I like this. I know many VCs that were never founders, so they can never think like a founder turned VC. Who cares? Honestly, who cares? I was a founder. I've gone through the brutality of being a founder and a few of the glorious, beautiful, amazing days of not facing brutality. But I know loads of VCs who are not founders. Actually, one of my favorite VCs, who's an incredible VC, has never been a founder. I don't think it's relevant. I think let's get back to the fundamental basis of what it is. I see myself as a founder, actually, even in Expert Dojo, because I founded Expert Dojo, right? Whether I found a VC or an accelerator, or whether I take a social media startup, they're all the same types of companies. But I also know that at the beginning, as a founder, I'm deeply purpose-led. That is why I do these calls. Now, as a founder who's deeply purpose-led, I am like many of the rest of you. Most standard investors, i.e. VCs, they're just thinking like any accountant would. That's the way they're supposed to think, right? They're thinking, I have gold that I could invest in. I have crypto that I can invest in. I have $50,000. I could put my money in a bank that's going to give me like a 5% turnaround. I could put my money into my friend. I could put my money into my kid, right? But everything is always about what is the internal rate of return. Am I as well getting a 5% return from a bank, or do I want to go to a VC and a VC will give me maybe a 15% return? But you also got to take into account that 50% of VCs do not return the original principal amount to the limited partners. So what does that mean? It's just math, Geron. Like, don't turn this into some kind of wonderful story, or you got to walk the walk and you got to be the sensei to be able to make it through. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just math. And at the end of the day, if it was your money and you're sitting at home and you think to yourself, I was with one of my investor friends yesterday. He's not rich. He's got like probably 200,000, 250,000, which he's got put into startups. That probably represents of 10% of the money he's got. He's worked his ass off as a cold caller, selling things that nobody on this call would ever dream of selling, like steak knives door to door, to amass the money he has. And now that guy wants to make a return. But you think like he needs to be a founder to be able to make a good decision as to whether he should put his money into gold, crypto, you, or somebody else? I don't think so. But what I do think is this: why not make it easy for them? That's kind of my point here. Like, just make it easy for them. If you're a pre-seed founder, everything is based on building belief. Remember, my biggest focus on marketing is always, oh, don't worry, I'll get in a sec. My biggest focus on marketing is always, how do we build trust in a trustless world? Like, how do we build belief when there is no belief? 2 years ago, most investors were idiots, including me. All of us were idiots, right? Somebody would meet in a Starbucks and they'd be like, hey, I've got this great idea. We're going to change the world. It's going to be, and we're like, oh my God, that's great. And you get a check by the end of your coffee. That idiotic world is gone. Thank the Lord. It was crazy. Everything should be based on a mathematical formula. It should be based on probability, and it should be based on belief. So if you have a company, remember this. Actually, I'm going to spend a few more minutes on this, sorry, because Durant brought it up, and I think this is such a great topic. And you really, really, really need to understand this, because the challenge is this is a bit like this book of like, men and women are Venus and Mars. And it's the same with founders and with investors. Being an investor is a very simple process. It's just very hard to pick the winners pre-Series A, right? Because you're doing it just based on belief. So here's the deal. It is all based on being able to do between 100 and 300% growth year on year for a number of years, right? And so if you're like on, say, go back to that 20 grand a month that I just said a moment ago. If you have $20,000 a month and then you get 100% growth, now you're on like 30 grand a month, right? And then you get 200% growth. Now you're on like 90 grand a month because you got 60 grand on top of your 30 grand. Then you get 100% growth. Well, you're on $180,000 a month right now. And so on and so on. Once you hit $1 million a month, you're in the money. It doesn't matter what it is, hardware, software, SaaS, direct to consumer, B2B. If you're doing $1 million a month, you're in the money. Your company's actually worth something. Prior to that, it's all pretend. You're losing money. Valuations are based on like agreements between the investor and you. The $10 million valuation that you have for making no money and doing $100,000 a month in revenue is not a real $10 million valuation. It's all pretend, right? So the principle of the entire game of investing is that the founder is able to build growth. Why is the time period of the growth important? Because IRR, which is the only rate that investors work on, is an internal rate of return. The internal rate of return is based on a yearly return, right? If I put my money in the bank for 4 years, I'm going to get 20%. right? If I put my money in a startup and I get 100% back, but it takes me 4 years to get my money, that's like 20%, or 5 years. That's going to take that's 20%. So what do I want to do? How do I want to risk it? And how do I want to make sure that it works properly? Like, you have to make sure that you tied into that. So do I think that you should work on math? Yes, speak their language, right? But do I also think that we have no idea what we're doing? Yeah, I do. I think it's very, very, very hard for me to know how well you're going to function as a team. I think it's really hard for me to know how is your customer, not your early stage customer, but I mean crossing the chasm. How is that customer going to react to your product? I think it's really hard to me to know, do you have the emotional resilience to be able to go through? And me being a founder is going to help me with none of that stuff. It's going to be really hard for me to know, is your husband, wife, anybody else going to break up with you? Is there going to be a death in your family? Is the market going to change massively whereby some of the other incumbent is going in? And I don't have enough financial data. So everything is based on belief. But I love this conversation. Let's have a quick look here. What do we got? Durant. Keith Rabios will never think like Jeff Bezos regarding investing income. Jeff Bezos lost money for the first 10 years. The only reason that Jeff Bezos is who Jeff Bezos is today is because there was a bunch of venture capitalists who gave him a ton of money so he could sustain a loss-making operation and be uncompetitive to other folks. He's doing great right now, but let's not use him as our example. Why don't we use as an example a real entrepreneur? Why don't we use Nachos from Blair's Dev Ventures? He got to $1 billion valuation. He didn't raise a single dime. The guy's a legend. Company's worth billions of dollars today. He's now launched BDev Ventures, who are a venture fund on the back of it. And they've got one of the top emailing growth hacking techniques in the world, actually. They probably helped a bunch of our companies get to where they're going to want to go to. So, yeah, I'm going to keep coming back to this conversation because it seems like people like it, but I want to just maybe top and tail it with this. As a venture capitalist, we are different to other venture capitalists in that most venture capitalists are very money centric. We're very customer centric. So I believe the customer is the answer to every question. And if the customer tells you that they love your product, and if the customer keeps buying more product, and if you have renewal rates in the early stages of like 100, 150%, if you have conversion rates from demo to sale of like 30, 40%, if you have maybe a profit margin, and I'm talking about gross profit margin of 30, 40% plus, like all of those things are really good indicators as to where you're going. Okay, I would check one, see if there's any last questions, and then I want to jump into another topic. We're good?
Yeah.
We're nice. And Durant, thank you, buddy. I actually really enjoy, look, with these conversations that we're having, they're only conversations if you give feedback. And so we're testing out this new platform and watching the chat on a different one to make it a little bit easier. But I want to just give you what VCs are thinking in general. And when I say VCs, I just mean the VCs that I'm speaking with every single day. Look, we've invested in 200 plus companies, 270, but we've co-invested with over 800 investors. Like even this week, I will meet with probably 40 to 60 investors regarding companies that we have. So I can do one thing really well. I can pattern match. And I can do a second thing really well. I can translate what that pattern matching looks like onto you to help you deal with your investors better. After that point, you got to follow your own heart on this stuff. If you feel what Brian said is bang on the money this week, brilliant. Use it, take it with my blessings. If you feel that I'm off, then run with your own intuition on it. But the really great thing is you'd at least have another opinion to go from. Okay. I'm going to start and I'm going to talk a little bit about, as I said, every one of these, I want to make sure that like I'm covering something that's useful from a growth hacking perspective, right? And I was digging in, and I'll normally dig in the previous week, either with one of our companies, or I'll dig in with like somebody who I really respect as one of our growth hackers. And I think whether it's an investor and whether it's a founder, we both come to the same place on who knows which is going to be $1 billion company and which is not going to be $1 billion company. And back when I was very early at this, I used to believe that the difference between both was really very much a science in the beginning stages. I don't believe that anymore. I think to like my earlier point, there's so many unknowns about the emotional aspect of what happens when you're building up a company and the challenges doing it. And I've seen so many founders who are like the greatest founders in the world who just really, really, really struggled emotionally to do it. And I've seen other founders that you thought could never build a team, build out some of the greatest teams that there are. And so I think there's a huge art at the beginning, but I also believe there's a formula that you can follow. And many people say, well, it's all about product market fit, or it's all about minimum viable product. We at Expert Dojo really believe in lovable products. And lovable product is, again, not a money-centric term. It is a customer-centric term. And it requires three aspects. First aspect is it can be simple. It doesn't have to be a fully complete product, right? But the second aspect is it has to be complete. And the third aspect is it has to be transformative. If it's not transformative, you're doomed, because the customer's not going to go with you. And then once you get to that stage and we're like, okay, we're on a mission to be able to build a beautiful, lovable product. That will not happen straight away. We got to go through a process to get it to a place where like you're really, really transforming the customers. And it kind of combines that science and that art piece as well. Now, I talked to you about customer engagement and what does customer engagement look like. And at the end of the day, it's all about how the customer is engaging with you and with the product. And that kind of, and I want to cover two areas, which I would like you to take away today. The first area is, and remember, with Expert Dojo, I have probably had, over our 10 years here, maybe 400 growth hackers that we've brought in, that we've engaged with our customers with, that we've had them working on different areas. So I have such pattern recognition that I can bring through. I've also not only like watched our companies do it, but helped them as well, because the more you do this, the more you get engaged, the more you evolve beyond yourself. So I know that there are two pieces that really, I think, changed my direction of what I saw to be the building of those billion-dollar companies. I used to feel, get great product market fit and then get it out to market and you have a great start. Now I think there's like two really important aspects. First one is that you have to be able to get your customer to complete on a core action. But the second one is the one I'm going to focus on, which is the self-perpetuating, right? And these are like the hierarchy of engagement. Like you get somebody in at the beginning, like even today, if you think about what you're doing, like you come in, you log in, you're now in here. This is the core action that we want you to take. Now, how we turn this to be self-perpetuating is a whole different area. And one of the guys, by the way, who's probably one of the best at this whole hooked model, our self-perpetuating model, is a guy called Nir Eyal. I highly, highly recommend his book, Hooked, which is Nireyal. But his book, Hooked, is absolutely fantastic. And I think this is really important because, actually, I want to give you an example. Let me come back for a second to where I was before. I said something else terrible had happened. Something really great had happened, which was the engagement. One of our companies going for Series A, who richly deserved it. And then I got kind of caught into a loop on the newsletter and how that went. But something worse than that happened. And I think I'm going to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about the company's name or anything, but I am going to talk about like what happened with them, because you got to know this, because this ties into the recurring, I actually call it, rather than product market fit being important these days, it's product market loop fit, right? So how do you create a repetitive loop to make this happen? And here's the example I'm going to give you. The example is going to be, had a company, I really like this company. I saw them about 2-3 years ago. They raised tens and tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars. They used those tens and tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars to buy Facebook ads. And the company was one of the darlings of Southern California. I won't break it down by region because that wouldn't be fair. And they've just come back to market now, raising around at under $10 million. How is that? Right? They got the original engagement. Everybody loved them. They got the personal brand. They got their brand right. They got their purpose right. They did a super job there. They managed to get the messaging out in the right place. But their revenue didn't translate into it. And their revenue didn't translate into it because they did not create a self-perpetuating loop. This is why I love Nir Eyal. Nir Eyal, for me, is one of the best growth hackers there are out there. He got this years ago. He was talking about how Twitter create their self-perpetuating loop. And the reason why this stuff is super important is because you're going to get to a VC, venture capitalist. And the venture capitalist is going to say to you, grow, 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 grow. And you're going to go straight to one of the loop sources, Google ads, Facebook ads, TikTok, Instagram, wherever you're going to go to. And you're going to spend a ton of money on that. And you're going to do it to probably, because you're going to get the whole thing about we need to get engaged users, right? But engaged users are just going to put you in the same place as this company who've come back at 1/10 of their valuation 2 years later, because they could not create the self-perpetuating loop that actually was needed. And you see this in so many companies. I get so many VCs who'll call me up and say, hey, Brian, we have this great company, and the great company has got like X conversion from demo to sale, and this is what they're doing here. And sometimes, and they all come in different forms. But the thing is, that core action is where it begins, but after the core action, you have to be able to get it to a perpetuating loop. Who were the ones who were really good at this? Pinterest killed it, obviously, right? Because everybody was pinning all over the place. They got me, the customer, to be able to create that self-perpetuating loop. Snapchat originally were great at it and then lost their way a little bit, and now it looks like they're coming back really strong. Twitter are my favorite. Like, they're just my favorite, because it doesn't matter how much they mess up. Doesn't matter. The fact that they created such a self-perpetuating loop means that people cannot leave. It's impossible to leave. You could even say to me, Brian, here's what I'm going to do. I created a competitor to Twitter. It's got better functionality, better user experience, better everything. And I'm going to give you the 5,000 followers that you have. God bless you, Brian. Here you go. 5,000 followers, no problem. And I'm not going to do it. And I'm not going to do it because of all of the work that I've put into Twitter to create that self-perpetuating loop. And a lot of this you'll actually get, even if you don't want to get the book for Nir Eyal, look at one of the YouTube videos. There's a ton of other ones on them. YouTube do it as well, by the way, and they do it by uploading videos too. So the question becomes then, if you have the core action, is the core action going to scale you up to get you up to enough users? Because if it doesn't, the self-perpetuating loop will not be enough. You got to be able to do both, right? You got to be able to take the core action, turn that into retaining users, and then create the self-perpetuating loop. And I would like to think that, like, as everybody gets off the call today and you're like, okay, Brian, I get number one. Number one is, do we have a decent math formula to compete with an investor putting their money in gold, an investor putting their money into interest rates, or an investor putting their money into another early stage company? Or what I heard one of my founders say yesterday, which is one of their investors has entirely pulled out of early stage because they feel it's too risky. Like, do you have enough math to be able to build belief in that area? And if not, how do you create that belief? How do you build more math on it? But the second piece I really want you to think about is, do you have a model that's going to be able to get your user? First of all, do you know what the core action is, right? And then if you know what the core action is, do you have a model that actually encourages your users to actively go after a core action? And if you have got them doing that, what is that core action? And then, is that going to allow you to create a self-perpetuating loop? Because here's what this will do for you. It'll help you really build a great company that will retain your users. And look, you could be doing, I don't know, like 4 or 5 million users, brand new users on a platform with like 70 or 80% retention. And you're going to lose out to a company that's going to do 2.5 million new users on a platform that have got like 90, 95, 97% retention. And that's it. So I would like to have a conversation around that. I would love to get any questions that anybody have on this. If you notice, a lot of what I talk about is emotional because it's around the customer, but it always finishes up with quantifiably logical. Everything is logical. This whole game we're playing is just logical. It's just about, like Jeff Bezos, who was mentioned earlier on. For him, he had enough belief with investors that they would keep on giving him gobs of money for years and years and years until he was okay. I personally hate these examples. Like Uber for me is another terrible example. Lyft is another terrible example. Why? Because these are pure, in the initial stages, these are pure Ponzi schemes. Lyft received $36 billion to be worth $36 billion. Is that a success? I don't think so. You know how much the founder has got left in Lyft? Let's see if anybody knows. Like the original, the largest shareholder of the original founders in Lyft, what would you say they still have? Anybody? I'll take you out of your misery. Less than 1%. Less than 1%. It sucks. Do you really want a $36 billion company and all the headaches that go with it to have less than 1% of ownership in the company by the time you're done? Wouldn't you rather be Honey? You know, Honey raised a Series A. That's it. They raised a seed and they raised a Series A, and then they collected $4 billion. Thank you very much. Don't fall into the trap of watching the silliness around Lyft, WeWork, Uber. These investors, for me, who are investing in these companies, don't just do harm to startups. I think they kill startups. Leaving aside like whatever I think of like Adam Newman personally, because I knew the guy, I think he was on a business level one of the greatest entrepreneurs of our time, and I think he was destroyed by SoftBank. They gave him so much money that he didn't need to do a business model. Anyway, I'm not going to rant too much about that. You get the 2 points that I'm going to cover today. Every week I'm going to try and do this. Now I'm just going to leave it for questions. What have we got, Ash?
Yeah, we don't have any. People are asking, we are killing the Monday Zoom call, and this is going to.
Yeah, we're going to host it here. So look, I like this because it's restream. It's a bit weird having the questions in different areas, but it allows us to stream into different places. And keep an eye on it. So like it's a little bit more hassle for us, but we like it. And the quality is better and allows you to come here. We also created this growth community for a very specific reason, right? I don't think that anything I know is rocket science, but I don't think most folks know it. I think most founders live in the world of founders, and I think the investors' world is a million miles away. And even as a founder, when I was an early founder, and I've been a founder of like property development company, which honestly was not that hard, a tech company, which was like really, really, really hard, and then a consultancy company, which was less hard, I would say. And I didn't know anything at the beginning. Nobody taught me in school. Nobody like said, hey, Brian, here's what you got to do. There's like 4 areas which are important if you're going to build a company. You got to have your outreach locked down. You got to have your optimization locked down. You got to have your systems locked down, and you got to have your lovable product locked down. And even if I was like, yeah, okay, I knew that, I still don't know how to implement it. And most people don't. So I want us to use this Monday morning. It's just a Monday morning to say, okay, let's go. All of us, let's go. We got some work to do, and let's try and cover some topics that you want. And also to be open. If there's a ton of questions or points in here, then I'll answer the questions and points to the best of my community. But much more importantly, we've added a few other things in here. Number one, we have a ton of like benefits and perks and stuff that we give to our cohort. I'm really happy. You can see them there. You won't get as much if you're not part of our cohorts or portfolio, but we'll still be able to give you perks and benefits, and you can just look there and pick them from it. Number 2, we built out a community. One is a pay it forward community. Nobody's allowed to sell in there, but everybody can offer help. It was really nice. I saw somebody in there this morning saying, hey, I want to offer help. This is my area of expertise. There's a growth hacking area in the community as well. And in the growth hacking area, people can just either post that they need help on growth hacking and like, what do you think about this loop? Or offer help, which I like even more. And it's very much a pay it forward mentality that's there. We're going to have we'll continually post up videos in there, video training in there, which will help you. There's a great one coming up today on trust. Again, there's no cost for any of this stuff. It's just for you. I want you to be armed to be successful. I know the formula. The formula is like 100 to 200% growth. The formula is that your customer doesn't hate you. The formula is that you're not relying on a Ponzi scheme to give you a ton of money that's not coming your way because it's already being promised to somebody whose mom or dad works in Sequoia or some other nice big venture capital firm. Like the solution is to become a great growth hacker. That's it, through loving your customer. And we have access to all this information. So I just wanted to be there. My only requests on this are just give, be a part of it, be active, give, go into the communities, give some help, offer areas that yourself. Do not self-promote. That's not the idea behind it. And make sure that you're there. And then from other perspectives, we'll just keep adding in new areas. We didn't want to overwhelm everybody with everything, but our belief was, actually, I'll say this in one very simple way. When I started Expert Dojo, it wasn't Expert Dojo at the beginning. It was called Pay It Forward Labs. And that was 10 years ago. And in Pay It Forward Labs, we would bring about 1,000 people to one of the biggest venues in Santa Monica, and people would get together, and we had like this Pay It Forward tree, and then we had investors came in. And then suddenly these founders were getting investment, but much more importantly, they were just getting better at being founders. And so we want to create an environment whereby we are facilitating that and we are helping that. So you've got all of that there for you. That's all there is. That's it. That's all I got for you. It's coming up to 9:15. We're going to make this like 45 minutes to an hour every single Monday morning. I'm serious. Blast me with anything. You think I'm like anything? Like you don't agree? Whatever you got.
Link for the growth community. Feel free to join.
Cool. So we have the growth community there. That's right, because a few of you will be on LinkedIn. So the growth community link, Ash has just put into chat. I don't think we have any other comments. And if we do, or if any of the comments didn't come through, it's the first time we've tried to live stream it to multiple different places. And if for any reason it was weird, funky, or you've got any comments or suggestions, just shoot me an email to brian@expertdojo.com. I reply to absolutely everybody. And every week I'm going to come back to you with something. At the very beginning, it will be something investment related that I've seen really successful the previous week and really shitty the previous week, so you can learn from it. And I'm taking the doozies out of the portfolio. I promise you, like this week, it would be relevant. Number two, I'm going to pick like one of my favorite growth hacks that one of our growth hackers are working on over the previous week, so you can work with it. But I'm going to add a number three in there just to finish off. If you have anything that you specifically want to cover, if you say, Brian, hey, you know what, the growth loops, that's fine, but I want to dig into it a little bit more. Or if you want to talk about LinkedIn automated outreach and you want me to bring on Nick from Cleverly or some other beast into this as well, you just let me know. And like we'll integrate these things. My hour on a Monday morning is yours. All right? So that's it. Unless there's any comments, suggestions, anything else that you would like, go forth and have a frigging awesome week. I would really like if you share any great news. So if you get like big sales, big growth, big something, especially if it comes from this, or you have epiphanies that are coming from, okay, Brian, I get you on the self-perpetuating loop. I've been working on this and this is what I've come up with. It's the whole reason we do this stuff. So go out there and make some money and build yourselves a unicorn, okay? And I'll see you same time next Sunday.